What's up everybody, it's me Retrovin, and we're back with another review. This time we're going to be reviewing Sly 2 Band of Thieves. I'm really excited to do this one and explain why I prefer it to the first one. So the story starts off with Sly and the gang breaking into this museum. They want to get the clockwork part so that it doesn't get into bad hands. And the cool thing about this is it makes use of Bentley and Murray for the first time. And it's a really good start because it showcases what's going to happen later in the game. Unbeknownst to them, though, they find out that the clockwork parts are actually gone, and Carmelita and her new partner Neela are working together to stop Sly. They don't know where the parts are, so now they have to find this new gang, and it turns out the Claw gang, according to Neela, were the ones that took it. So that starts Sly and the gang off on their adventure. So throughout the game, a lot like the first one, you'll be fighting a bunch of different bosses. The only difference is that they're on 2 worlds instead of, one, except for Dimitri. Dimitri's got the 1 level. Every other villain, for the most part, has like 2 of their own worlds, so it's a little bit too extended, but I have no problem with it. It's more cool levels, even if it's the same villain. The story does kick off, too. It's got a lot of neat twists. So the Neela person, throughout the game, actually starts to help Sly at different points, but later on she betrays him and the gang, and then also betrays Carmelita right there. There's actually a whole section of the game where you just play as Bentley for a few missions, because the rest of the gang's gone, but then you have to rescue them in the prison. And that's the only part where something like that happens. It was actually a really clever thing for them to make Bentley all alone for that 1 mission. I think it was like 2, actually. It was cool. You got to learn the hacking from that, too. But story-wise, there are a ton of other twists, like them losing the clockwork parts, too, and eventually later, Neela becoming Clockla after betraying somebody else. That was a common thing she did in the game. But basically, at the very end, you know, they defeat Clockla, but Bentley's feet basically takes the fall for it, and he gets his feet squashed, and he's handicapped at the end. And it has one of the darkest ending scenes I've seen in any game ever.
But one look at my gang told me that we were in no shape for a fast getaway. So I offered to go peacefully in exchange for letting my friends walk. They'd taken some bruises through all of this, but I was surprised, shocked really, to see them leave their gear behind as they walked away. Their wounds were deeper than I'd imagined. Those guys were hurting.
It is such a good story. They really have a lot better character development than they did in the previous one. Sly doesn't sound like he's bored or, you know, uninterested anymore. He has more of a personality in this one. Carmelita's got my favorite voice. I know people will say, What? She doesn't have the accent, though. Well, I don't mind it. Carmelita shouldn't need to have one. She has a decent voice in this one, or whoever did it. But, with that being said, the character dynamic was great between Sly, Bentley, and Murray. You really felt like they were a gang together, and it just all capped off into a great ending. So overall, probably one of the best stories in gaming I've ever seen. With that out of the way, though, we can get on to the gameplay now. So throughout the game, Sly basically keeps the same sort of moveset that he has in the first one, with a few differences. He now can charge his cane and all that, and he could pickpocket enemies now. And you can pickpocket enemies to get loot or money. There's also bottles that you can collect, just like in the first game. Although this time they're not really scattered in main levels. They're mainly scattered in the hub world, so if you look around, you'll be able to find them all in the big hub. And the hub in this world is a lot bigger than the first game. It's almost like a mini open world, I guess would be a more accurate term for it. And within that mini open world, there are little side areas you go in for different missions, and that's kind of how they utilize it. You also play as Bentley and Murray, and they're utilized very well in this game. They play a little different from Sly, but they have some similar moves, like they can still like crouch and hide behind different walls, but Bentley would be more tactical, where Sly is, you know, stealthy and athletic in comparison. Murray, on the other hand, is more brawn, so he'll be like punching enemies and shit, and basically you have platforming versus tactical versus, you know, fighter, basically. That's the difference between the 3. And it's nice. It has a nice character variety to it. The bosses in this game are also pretty good, too. The strategies they use are pretty well utilized, and it gives you a good challenge. Like, some are just straight up, you know, punching the enemy. There's one with Sly and Rajan where you gotta jump on these little stool things to avoid his shots. So a lot of them have some kind of strategy to them, so definitely I'd say the bosses are pretty decent. The environments in the game also look really good too. The only problem is that a lot of them are overused, it feels like. So like there'll be one world that's, jungle themed, and then the second world will be in a different area, but it's the same theme. And they mainly do that when it's the same villain getting their second world, which can be an issue. The cel-shaded look, though, that holds up very well with the graphics of today, and it's surprising. When they made it on the HD collection, it almost looks like a PS3 game with how smooth the cel-shaded look gave it. A major part of the game is ThiefNet, and with ThiefNet, you can buy stuff, basically, with the coins that you get. Either it could be stuff like that you bring back for ThiefNet, or, stuff you could sell on it, or you could just buy stuff right away, and that gives Sly, Bentley, and Murray new powers based on who you buy it for. It's a cool little thing. They got their own shop now that gives them an interesting power. Carmelita as a gameplay thing is also back, like when it comes to her chasing you, and she'll still like be around, but it's not as significant. Like she'll sometimes appear in like different missions at different points, and she'll even have key story moments like I mentioned before, but the big difference is that she'll mainly be like exploring the hub. So like in the main hub world, she'll actually like start shooting at you if you get in her way, which is cool. I like that. While most of the on-foot levels are pretty decent in Sly 2, the vehicle levels still suffer just like the first game. And in some way, I'd say it's to a lesser degree, obviously, because they improved on it a little bit. But there are a few vehicles, especially like a tank in Episode 5 with Murray, that just controls really bad, and it doesn't fit in at all because the controls are really stiff, all things considered. The greatest improvement from the first one, and probably one of the most important ones, is the fact that they took out the gross live system from the first one. And it was good because it's at this point in gaming around 2004 where lives just weren't a big thing anymore. So they took that out, and they also took out the whole you can die in one hit. Now Sly, Bentley, and Murray all have a health bar, so it makes things a lot easier now. Now don't let that trick you into thinking stuff like boss battles are easy, because they're not. They still got a bit of a challenge to them, even with the health bars, because they're tougher than the Sly 1 bosses, which is precisely why they have those kinds of health bars. In the worlds, though, they also have different environmental obstacles, like there'll be a train in one of the levels, for example, or... Oh, actually more than one of the levels, or there'll be tanks, for example. So more than just guards with flashlights, it brings more of a variety to the world, which is nice. It's good to have that sort of differentiation to make it different from the rest of the, game, rather than just every level is guard with light and you walk around and do thing. No, it's like an open world and everything feels like it's somewhat alive with its different themes. Recon missions are also another important thing that you do at the beginning of every episode. And basically those are where you go to the main bad guy's area, you explore it a bit, and then you take pictures of stuff. It's pretty standard, but it's a fun little thing. And then that's when you get all the missions in between with Bentley and Murray and Sly. That could be a number of things, really. The best part about it, though, is definitely the operations at the end of each episode. It feels like a heist movie, and they really got that feel with each of them. Because most of them feel like you're doing one big thing where, there'll be a Sly part or a Bentley part or even a Murray part, and it all just fits in so well by the end of it. Now, the music in this game is basically the same as the first one. And when I say that, I mean the music is very solid, also just like the first one. Why don't you take a few to listen to?
We smooth. Look, see the money. You like the money, the money, the money. Let's dance! Let's dance! Yeah, yeah, yeah!
as a whole, I think Sly 2 is a very solid game. It made major ground and improvements from the first game in basically everything. And I know there's a disagreement amongst the fan base over which one they prefer, but for me, I'd say I prefer 2 over 1, just for those significant improvements. With that being said, though, that's going to be it for the video. Hopefully you guys have a good one. I'm out. Peace.